I wandered back to my room, eventually, and dropped off what items I'd chosen, laying them out on my bed. It felt wrong to sum up Tyson and Orlando with just a few items, but given how we were going to escape, I had to think light. We'd come back for their bodies like Haas said. Then it'd be fine. It'd all be fine. I'd stashed the items in my bag for now and figured I'd load up my pockets before we made the trek down the mountain. That way I could keep them out of sight and maybe get some sleep without the constant reminder. Guys? Dean was sitting off to the side, seemingly freshly showered, his fur slightly damp from where I was sitting. Dean? Oh, hey. Are you alright? I had someone explain what happened, and I didn't get it. Let it sit for a bit before getting explained again, and I'm just so confused. You're confused? Not scared or angry or scared, maybe. Angry? I don't think I've hit that point. I'm still mostly just shocked. Dean looked to his hands, then to me, speaking softly. I've had maybe 3 showers, but I can still see the blood on my hands, even though it's not there. Benson's blood? Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking, but just seeing that much blood, I wasn't sure if he was able to be saved or not. You tried giving him CPR? I tried shaking him awake gently, but it wasn't until I'd brought Sal back with me that it really sank in just how, He looked like he was going to be sick when he trailed off, but breathed in deep and seemed to push it down. What Jack did to him, it was messy. If it wasn't for the clothes, you'd have been hard-pressed to know it was Benson. And you're sure it was? I'm sure. Sal was sure too. Died with a gun in his hand, it looks like, but it looks like Jack decided to go a little nuts after killing him. No way you'd need to cut him open like that otherwise. I found myself sitting down beside Dean, rocking gently back and forth. Just hearing that made me as queasy as Dean looked. But tomorrow we can get away. I just need to get through tonight. Without medication? We leave first thing? Are you gonna be alright with that? It'd be hard to go to sleep, but if it means one night of bad sleep for us to go home, I'll put up with it. Thanks, Dean. Did you want to talk about anything? Such as? Orlando? Tyson, maybe? I whined, and he put an arm around me, squeezing me gently. Sorry, I didn't... No, it's okay. I just can't believe they're gone. It hurts that they're gone and that we're leaving them behind tomorrow. We can come back for them still, right? But I want to take them with me. It feels wrong just leave them here with them still in the woods. I know. Do you? I can't say I was all that close with Orlando. After all, this isn't really a friend group. Even after, well, getting chewed out by him. But Tyson seemed like someone I could get along with eventually. I wish I knew him better. He looked at me briefly before turning away again. If it's not too painful, you mind telling me about them? What'd you want to know? Orlando was kind. He was either almost always happy or unsettled by something Roswell had come up with, or fed up with something Haas had done, at least in last year. The smile on my face wavered as I continued, preemptively wiping the tears away. Even with a family like his, even if I didn't really think about it, he was still a good person. They both were. I'm sorry, Dave. I could have said things were fine. I could have said any number of things to try to make Dean feel better, but I just ended up sitting there, nodding slowly. Yeah. Is there anything I can say? Or do? Anything you want to tell me, or... What's there to say? I don't know. Tyson and Orlando. I'm never going to get to talk to them again, and that sucks. I didn't even hold back, wailing into my hands as I started to cry. Dean pulled me tighter against him, and if anything, it made me cry all the harder. Hey, it's alright. You'll be okay. It just hurts. It just hurts so much. Did you want some coffee? More hugs? I don't really know how I can help. I don't know.
Are you two okay?
Sure don't look okay, Sal.
I meant...
It's a hard question to answer. I'm still processing everything. Everything's hitting Dave, so... What about you two?
I've had enough. I want to go home.
Seconded. I can't smell anything other than blood, and there's nothing we can do about it. Even just standing outside makes coming back inside worse.
Even if you just stayed in your room?
Being alone doesn't seem like a great option at the moment either.
Tomorrow. We just have to get through tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. It's always a day away. Hold on. Where's Roswell?
Sleep. He almost collapsed earlier and I walked him to his room. Barely closed the door before passing out. It sounded light.
I think you meant to say it sounded like.
Oh. I don't know why. I was like, because I was staring at that preemptively before he got to it, and I was staring at it thinking, like, maybe it sounded light. It's supposed to be a separate sentence, like his sleeping sounded light.
Yeah.
But yeah, sounded like makes way more sense. The typos are getting dense here.
They really are.
The Sal route just seems ignored by everyone possible, basically.
Agree. Did you hear him hit the floor or what?
I wouldn't be surprised if he did pass out on the floor, but I have enough on my mind as it is.
Way to look out for the guy, Sal.
I didn't see you doing anything to help, Hoss.
Wow, they're just really going after each other at this point, huh?
I'm not
a doctor. I can't help him with what's happening to him.
That's not... Arguments are weird in this game.
They are.
People don't respond to the previous statement. Like...
It's true, they do not.
It's like, specifically on a regular basis, like, this is akin to, like, the Thanatos thing a little bit, which he does constantly, and it feels like actual characterization for him, but other people do it here and there sporadically, where oftentimes someone calls somebody out, and the other person was like, well, Uno reverse card, back to you, and then the other person's like, forgot the thing that they just said, and doesn't understand what the topic conversation's about, so they just say something else completely. I'm not a doctor. It's like, what? That's not what you were getting on Sal for, and Sal was getting on you for also not doing the thing you were getting on him for. So why did you change the subject again? Why did so many conversations go this way?
Yeah.
Weird. Sal nodded slowly and backed up to sit on the stairs. What do we do now?
Anyone hungry?
Oh, really? I shook my head and Sal followed suit. Thirsty? Again, everyone shook their heads. If you don't have anything else to do, you can just skip to tomorrow. It's fine. Maybe we should all just sleep. Rest up for tomorrow. It's not even lunchtime.
Shy of just waiting.
We could go see what the rat is up to. What are you even doing, given what happened?
God, I just want to parent all these people. I'm just like, motherfuckers, you're about to go on a death hike through the wilderness tomorrow. And most of you haven't been eating even yesterday. Shut the fuck up and eat something. I don't care if you're hungry. You absolutely have to force something down. You're about to go hiking through the wilderness tomorrow. You can't just opt out of that. That's basic preparation. If there's anything you're doing today, you're going to at least fucking eat something. Otherwise, you're literally killing yourself. Like, you're actively sabotaging your chances. Like, if you're actually scared and worried, you need to eat something. You can't just fucking just be depressed and lay down and go to sleep for another whole day again. You can even find him.
Can we search the house, maybe?
Awful lot of house to search, too. Y'all, consistently, you can just say his name and he shows up half the time. And he said where he went. So go there. Did you forget? He said where he went like 5 minutes ago. Why would you search the house? More than that, if he doesn't want to be found, he can just avoid us. He's small enough, but if he's already seen us, look for him. He'll just choose not to be there. They're such incredibly defeatist characters, and they explain every possible reason why they shouldn't bother doing anything, basically, in a lot of these contexts. And in some of these cases, they have a very obvious actionable course of action, which they should exhaust first before explaining all the reasons why they should stop. And they just don't, and it's driving me crazy now.
Yeah. You can't be serious.
It's like, he was literally like, if he doesn't want us to find him, then we'll never find him. He literally said, I'm gonna go to the lab, that's where I'm gonna be, that specific location you know the location of. I'd invite you, but there's a corpse there, so see ya.
Yeah.
That was the exchange. Not,
Yeah.
don't look for me, I'm Batman. I am. Thanatos can just choose to hide and we'll never find him.
Well, there goes that idea.
Why? We want to play a game? Take our mind off things? Eat something. No, I think I'm good.
I'm with Dave. I don't even feel like watching anime.
Just tried to emotionally prepare himself for having to read that line.
If we're heading home tomorrow, do we need supplies? What's the plan?
I imagine once we get to the main road, we can hitchhike into town and call for help, so traveling light is probably smart.
My plan is once we're out of range of this signal jammer. Our plan is, once we're out of range of this signal jammer, is to call the police.
Oh, well, that's a great idea. Let's do that.
Hopefully it doesn't stretch too far, but once we're on the main road again, past where the road was blown up, we'll be outside its range.
That was a really weirdly phrased way of asking
Weirdly
that question.
phrased and just like overly specific in a way where it's like, man, nobody knows how this works. We just get far away. Just keep going. Probably just keep walking. They don't have like a power station out here, so it's not like a fucking like military grade fuck you device. But you know,
yeah,
just get far away. Just walk. You can walk a lot of miles in a day. Just walk for a while. Just go. It's fine. If they're not going to do anything else, I just kind of wish they'd skip to tomorrow, because I'm begging. They're just not really discussing it. They've been spinning their wheels for a while now. Yeah, I do want to take something with me as a keepsake. You already did! Something to remember Orlando and Tyson by until we can come back for them. You did that already. We did that scene. I'll be happy to carry something if that works. Think maybe a small backpack or something to help carry it? Dave already has a bag. What? At the moment, it's just a shirt and their phones, plus some other bits, but I don't need all that much.
Sure, I'll help too. Or at least if there's something I can do to help, say the word.
Sure. At the moment, I've just put what I have in my bag, but we can decide before we head out.
Then all we have left to make sure Dean doesn't take medication, get some rest for what will be a long walk for tomorrow, and make sure Roswell can come with us.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Only thing we have to wait on is Roswell, then.
If what Thanatos said was right, Roswell should be fine. Apparently he didn't seem sure. We're stuck in, it's the welcome to the logistics zone, the part where password characters over-explain logistics about where people are going to be and what they're going to do all the time, but half of this is repeating stuff that was in this conversation in this room earlier, so we're just looping now, and it's one of those moments where it's like, I just think about, like, the way that, like, for example, in Flynn's route in Echo, Flynn and Chase have a big argument outside of the smoke room, right? Mm-hmm. Hard cut to Chase alone doing his project the next day. You can just edit. Like, I don't mean like edit text. I mean it is the same thing, but you can edit like cinematically. You can edit the storytelling to just go from scene to scene, and you don't have to like kill the time in the meantime. Like, well, we gotta make it feel like day 22 has a day's worth of text. It's like the audience knows what's happening. All the characters know what's happening. The stakes have been established, the plan has been established, and now we're just re-explaining things that have already happened, and re-explaining the plan, and re-explaining the concept of hiking, and re-explaining the things that Thanatos just said, and I'm like, stop! Just don't leave this in. None of this does anything.
Yeah. We're
not learning about the characters in the process. It's not about their reactions to it. It's literally just more writing.
It's more writing. This is actually like a thing as well in especially visual novel writing, where the example I'm going to use isn't exactly explaining your own plot, but like it happens in Zero Escape a lot, where a character will bring up a concept. Yeah, well, a character will bring up a concept and will say like, I mean, I'll just use like Ice 9 as an example, but they'll be like, anyway, if we had Ice 9, we could deal with this. Have you heard of Ice 9? Here's the inline definition of Ice 9. And in case, I know some of you have already heard of this, but, and then it's like, silently, if the audience hasn't, here's the definition of Ice 9. And like,
and here's the layman explanation, metaphor, Star Trek explanation of Ice 9.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not really that helpful. And like, this came up when we were writing Cape Escape Development Hell.
It's from Kurt Vonnegut's Cat's Cradle.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Kurt Vonnegut? Stop!
Yeah. And like, there was an example in Cape Escape Development Hell where I mention the medical condition rhabdomyolysis, which is not super relevant, but there's a character who's talking about something and they say, one time I worked out so hard that I even got rhabdo. And a few of our test readers for the section that I was in, for the section that I gave out to the readers before we made the trailer, all of them pretty universally were like, hey, what is this? Can you explain in the text what this is? Because I don't know what it is, and if I have to look it up, that's gonna take me out of the text. And I just like looked at that feedback and I was like, how would I integrate this? Like, I got rhabdomyolysis, which is what happens when you work out so much that you get, like
X
and X happens.
You just point the Pokedex at him and it's like, rhabdomyolysis.
Exactly. And it's like this is what happens when you're like your body begins to basically when damaged muscle tissue and it gets like pollutes your blood and gives you blood poisoning, and it can damage your heart and kidneys and stuff.
Oh,
and like
geez.
and I was talking about, and I was just thinking about this, and I was like, at a certain point, because like I can really sympathize with Grizz if Grizz like writes a character, and I'm not saying this is what happened, but I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say Grizz says a character goes to do something, and then people respond to the build with like, I didn't really get it. I guess I must have missed that detail. Can you summarize it afterwards so that we just make sure everyone gets on board? And this is like a really common flaw in writing, is like over specifying.
Yeah.
When in reality, the whole point of like context and reading is that like, yeah, every once in a while, you will encounter a word or a concept or even just a situation you don't fully understand. And you either stop to look it up, and that's okay. You read back, and that's okay. Or you just keep trucking with it, and it eventually makes sense. So like, you don't need to define rhabdomyolysis every single time it comes up in a text. It's okay if your audience has to stop, even if they complain in the moment, like, it takes me out of it. Like, immersion isn't really actually that necessary for telling a good story.
There are times that people say stuff that doesn't make sense. So like,
yes, absolutely.
And you can just blow past those moments. Sometimes you just kind of hear references to things, both media references and just a thing that exists in life. And if it's not load bearing, you just kind of power through. It's like, I just kind of said a thing or whatever. Same way that it's the same way like even a story like Small Saga makes a point to just not define a term over and over again that it keeps using. And it's a running joke that the other characters also don't understand what they're saying, and they just keep not defining it, and they never define it, basically. And that's just a thing you can do, technically. As far as the rhabdo thing, like, I don't know the context, but my brain workshopping it without context is like, just to have someone be like, don't you have to get like 100 shots for that? It's like, no, that's rabies. Rhabdo's like a working illness or whatever. Like, you just like do a quick, dumb conversational explanation that's like not actually an in-depth explanation, but like a clarification. Yeah. But what I think about is that your disease probably isn't important to the narrative of the thing you were writing. No,
but not at all.
This game did have a disease that was important to its narrative,
yes.
And that was actually that was actually a very bizarre example of a massively underexplained thing, where Dave like picked up a bottle and like half read it and then didn't finish reading it, even though he did see the name, but he didn't tell us in his narration, so we didn't know what it was. And he's like vaguely like, oh, I know about that from my mom or something, and then just moved on. And that turned out to be like that turned out to be like one of the most important things of that entire sequence, and it was bizarrely underexplained despite Dave understanding it clearly, to the point where it got even more confusing every step of the way. It's like there are moments that could do with some explanation, and you need to figure out how to elegantly do that, although in that case it was literally just Dave's thinking, so you could just explain it verbatim. But in moments like this, we're just like not learning anything, we're not actually making more of a plan, it's just it's just the concept of hiking, and no characters are like bringing in their particular insights, they're not reacting to it in massively different ways, we're not learning more about the characters all that much. The most impactful thing that's happened in like the last like few hundred words has basically just been that Haas said, oh no, I'm gonna call the police the moment they're out of range. Like, where everyone else is like, we better get to civilization. It's like Haas has like a slightly different reaction there. That's basically the only thing that's happened for like the last like, I don't know, maybe 300 words, where they've just kind of been looping old information as if an AI chatbot was like programmed on this scene and just kept generating more text but had no additional information to work with. And it's the kind of thing that should get feedback and get edited out, as far as I can tell, and it just don't. I'm just like, man, I'm so sorry that nobody read this and was like, hey, no, this drags like crazy, because someone should have said something at some point.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's our massive rant for the moment. And yes, every time we do this, I do understand the irony of complaining about the pacing or how much time that's being wasted, and then we get on a tangent about it, which makes it longer. But that's the concept of being able to commentate. I'm not going to just keep pressing A while I commentate. That'd be an interesting way to run the Let's Play. Like like it was
for sure.
timed dialogue, and it just kept going without me. Did you read this one? I don't think
More like
so.
not telling us the whole story, but I don't get why he'd lie now of all times. Not when he had any number of other things he could be lying about.
So Roswell will be fine? So we'll find out in the morning? If it's just a waiting game, I think I'm gonna make sure we have the supplies we need to get ready. Rations for the road, maybe some climbing equipment if I can find it.
Rations might be going a bit far, but I'll help if you need it.
Really? I feel like walking into the woods without a map or cell service after a blown up road where you don't know where you're going, rations is like the #1 most obvious thing you grab.
Yeah. If you bring food and water, especially water, which is rough because it's both heavier and you need more of it faster, but you need these things. But these are just the basics. It just doesn't feel entirely necessary to explain. It especially feels like a thing where you just cut to the hike in the morning and they're like, and then you just have a quick recap of like, yeah, Dean scrounged the greenhouse for any extra food we could find, and we're all hauling off, and yeah, like it could be conveyed in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna go check the greenhouse. I wouldn't know where else to look for tools. Welcome to come if you want.
Wish I could help, but I don't remember seeing anything like climbing gear around here. If it exists, it wouldn't be anywhere we've been before.
I think I'll leave the preparing to you and Sal. After earlier, I think I just want to lie down. So we split off, Dean and Sal heading back outside, Haas towards the kitchen, and I wandered upstairs to rest. Tomorrow. All we needed to do was wait until tomorrow, and I'd get home. It all seemed too good to be true. The day passed with nothing happening, no visits from Jack. Roswell seemed to sleep things off when I checked on him, and I found the other three just sitting downstairs, waiting like I had been. Because the safest thing to do with a terminally ill patient is to starve them for multiple days. So after sitting in silence for a bit, once more we headed back upstairs. Unlike Sal, I was struggling to stay asleep. Everything about what the morning would bring kept running through my head. Worries, hopes, any number of things that could still go wrong, battling against the excitement of finally getting to go home. Finally getting to go home, I guess, but you could have tried this whole time. I sat up, hugging my knees while Sal shifted onto his side, still asleep. As I contemplated getting up to get a glass of water, I spotted him standing in the middle of the room, staring at me as if he was waiting for me to move.
You coming?
Huh? He said nothing else, instead turning on a heel and walking out the room. One last look over his shoulder implied that he wasn't going to wait for me to follow, and I was curious on where he wanted to take me. I followed. For whatever reason, I followed. He led the way down, not asking for a lift and not acknowledging as to why he'd sought me out, not until we were downstairs. Where are we going?
Does it matter?
It's the middle of the night, so yes? I thought we were meant to be resting up for tomorrow.
This is more important.
Okay, but what is more important?
Just keep following. We need to set something up.
You're still not telling me what this thing is, though. He just continued on despite me, asking again, and he called back over his shoulder as he continued to walk.
We're almost there. Just be patient.
Eventually, I just picked him up and sat him on my shoulder. If he wanted me to be patient, that was one thing, but leading the way was taking forever. He guided me down the driveway, and I watched as he twitched slightly the further we got. If the hedge maze was the edge of his working range, I wondered just how much further we were going.
Here.
Shakily, he pointed to a rock, and I put him down. Him dropping down into a sitting position immediately. We're a bit further from the house than I thought we'd come. We're a bit further from the house I thought we'd come. Whoops.
We needed to.
Are you gonna tell me for what now?
Yes.
He struggled to stand, but managed. The illusion of him being a rat faded from how his neck seemed to twitch, robotic eyes glowing the way they did in the dark.
Are you ready for a story?
I thought we needed to set something up. If you just wanted to tell me a story, we could have done so inside.
No, not this one. Get comfortable.
Sitting down on the road, I was thankful that I'd kept pants on, though the night air was starting to nip at me with the lack of shirt.
Okay, the story I want to tell you.
Is...
It's...
If you're struggling, we can go back inside, it's fine.
It's not fine. Forget the story. I'm just gonna tell it like it is.
Tell what like it is?
The experiment. It's over.
It is? Wait, which experiment are we talking about?
The one my master set out to complete.
The look I gave him should have been enough to clue him in that I wanted more information, but his attention seemed drawn back to the house. Well, now that it's done, now what?
Dave, do you know what the completion of the experiment means? It means that I've won. That I do not have a purpose to fulfill. Spelled fulfill wrong, I think. From this point on.
I don't remember what the word fulfill looks like now.
It has two L's at the end,
yeah.
I think. I guess, well, it might be a
prob-
verb if it is only one. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to, I don't know. It
Might be a regional thing.
I feel weird about it. Honestly, just looking at English in caps lock just really fucks with your perception of what words look like sometimes.
Ah, this is the Australian version.
Ah. Is that bad?
That's annoying.
My master would say no. He would say that it was all worth it to ensure that you lived, that you alone survived above everyone else.
I wonder if Dave Sr. is his master.
Could be, or himself. Me? Your master wanted to save me?
Yes, it was always you, Dave, the pin keeping this group together and alive.
Not that alive. I don't understand. What would have happened if...
If you died?
It's very strange that the last thing that happened that needed to happen for the experiment to keep Dave alive, for it to succeed, was for Benson to die. Like, why was that the last step? Why is this conversation doesn't happen after, like, some bad guy is defeated or they escape or anything? I nodded quickly and watched as he struggled to move, trying to look at me.
I'd ask if you really want to know, but you just nod and look at me funny. Of course you want to know.
So why do you like this, Thanatos? He smirked, shaking his head.
You keep this group together more than you know. Before any of all of this. Before your dad got involved with Oswin's little workaround, you were meant to die.
Some people think you keep this group together because of raw charisma, but it's actually that, like, that parasite that cats have. His attention went back to the house as he continued.
That set into motion a series of events that wound up with everyone you know and love dead, too. Your father in the line of duty, your mother after she develops a broken heart following a messy divorce just before that.
My eyes went wide as he rattled this off as if it meant nothing, him shrugging as best he could with his body seemingly fighting him.
Your friends, in accident after accident, wrong place at the wrong time or through other means.
He shrugged, as if what he was saying held no weight.
Roswell succumbs to his illness, Orlando killed by his own father, Tyson in a car accident, Haas in a shooting, Dean in a workplace accident, and Sal. Well, he suffers the most, probably.
Wait, Haas is afraid of guns because he's going to die in a shooting? Or does he have a traumatic past with shootings and is afraid of guns now and also will also somehow manage to die in a shooting too?
Probably that.
It is a bit like Orlando got shot and then recovered so that he could die getting shot. But it is that, again, I guess. Huh.
Yeah.
It's deeply ironic. So this is a bit of a hint that this is a thing to rant about, but not much. But it's just an issue with the writing, I think, in this game is that in our conversations, Grizz did hint that there is supposed to be a kind of Final Destination thing going on, and
sure.
I don't think the narrative ever conveyed that in any concrete or even particularly reasonable terms. I think that the first time Oz talks to you on the speakers or whatever, he kind of says something like the equivalent of like one of your friends is marked for death, but that's such an ambiguous term that it by no means that you're like, oh, you're doomed, Dave. You're a curse, and everyone around you is going to die via random tragic accidents, like in the movie The Time Traveler or whatever. It's like, no, or The Time Machine, I think, is the movie / book where he keeps trying to save one girl and she keeps dying via Final Destination shenanigans. Anyway, that definitely was not conveyed, that we were just like magically fated to always die in some weird accident. So this is like the first time we're actually getting that idea confirmed so much later, when like, if anything like that was explained up front by Oz, it would solve a lot of the narrative's problems, because we'd actually have an explanation for why we even should stay, because half the time that's just deeply, deeply unclear, like what was happening. So that's just like it addresses problems I've had since the beginning of the game, because Dave just has very unestablished motivation to do what Oz wants and to stay here and to not just freak out and tell all his friends and get them to leave, or even just throw a fit until he ruins their vacation but saves their lives or whatever. From his perspective, like, it's very unclear why he shouldn't just fuck off. And he continues to keep working with Oz, and then we have the big meeting with Oz, and he's like, I hope this was illuminating, and all he did was explain that he killed children, and that still didn't illuminate shit about why we should stay here or what's happening. And definitely, like, even if the marked for death line stays, at least by the time you get to the Oz scene where he's like revealing secrets by candlelight, he definitely should be explaining this exact thing, basically, that like, no, like, you and your entire line are doomed. Like, something's fucked up here. It's fucking, it's the House of Usher.
Causality.
Yeah. Like, you guys, like, you're all gonna have horrible, ironic deaths unless we can figure this out, even if you don't fully understand what this is. And then at this point, at the end, I think we're understanding, like, oh, this is like a insane quantum experiment to save the doomed child by iterating through infinite timelines until you find the way that he somehow survives this, I guess. So I guess
he's looking for the miracle cock era. That's what's happening. This is just taking from another visual novel. It is that constantly repeated visual novel trope of like, we must find the one golden timeline. Umineko does it, Higurashi does it. Granted, that's like part of those narratives, but like, this exists in every single one. Zero Escape does it.
Zero Escape does it by brute forcing a million doomed timelines to create a successful timeline by cheating, and that's the goal, is to literally cheat the timelines.
And it's just it's kind of frustrating. So all of this, everything that you've said is true. That it's like doing all these things and it's not very well conveyed. But I kind of think that one of its bigger issues too with this is that, like, on top of it being poorly conveyed, it's just doing too much. Like, it's not just doing a morphogenetic field. It's doing a morphogenetic field while also looking for the miracle cock era, while also doing Final Destination. And it's like, you're fated to be doomed, but you're also fated to be doomed in all of the other circumstances we're arbitrarily constructing to make sure that we can get the right outcome where you're not fated to be doomed. And also, it's just like, there's too much going on. It could just be one of these things. I don't know why it needs to be every trope on top top of itself.
I've been intentionally not commenting on it this entire playthrough because it kind of felt like a let it slip moment where when he mentioned Final Destination.
Yeah.
But I have been aghast at how long it's taken for the basically Final Destination explanation to come up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is the explanation that would literally motivate the characters to even do the plot, because their very behaviors don't make sense because they don't know this vital piece of information, or if Dave is supposed to believe that piece of information, then it was via a line that was so poorly conveyed and so brief, which is shocking by password standards because it's the main thrust of the narrative, that it like didn't actually convey to the audience exactly what was at stake. Because there is this vague, there's this weird sense from all the conversations between Oz and Dave early on in this path, which were cut off short quickly because he died, where it feels like Dave does genuinely come away from those scenes more informed and more motivated in his perspective, but we don't know why. And we don't know what he thinks he learned because it was not conveyed clearly. And some of this stuff just needs to be front loaded because like this would explain so much.
Yeah.
Because here it's just like, no, everyone's going to die via a magic curse or something. It's like, okay, well now I get it. I get what's happening.
Yeah.
Everyone too, not just some of them, like fucking everyone. What happens to Sal?
Well, he outlives all of you lot on genetics alone. Call it a consequence of the medical trial, or just a species. I'm not a biologist.
A strange line to include, given that it implies that he's car accident proof, shooting proof, and workplace accident proof. Like, it implies that his outliving like was compared to the conditions of the deaths.
Gets caught up with one of Memphis's goons, and not that he makes it to old age anyway.
Shakily, a finger was drawn across his neck to finish the thought.
But we don't need to worry about that anymore.
Because we're escaping in the morning?
Listen to me, Dave. Do you understand the lengths I went through to secure your survival? Is he going to reveal that all of them are dying in the house right now?
Actually exploded. He just burns the house down right now, like in all those visions, and Dave just is here alone. Like, no?
Well, hopefully you do someday.
You're starting to freak me out. More than usual, I mean.
Don't fret, Dave. You're safe.
How do you know that? You can't see what happens outside this place? Yeah. Like you're trying to be convincing. Like you're trying to be convincing of that right now. Maybe older true ending Dave, that is the timeless child or whatever the fuck, is just like floating in a vat in the middle of this mansion and has been phasing in and out like transparently because their fate is in flux, and the moment they became opaque, it's like, we won! Dave's gonna live now. And that's how they know. But he can then live on to become that character one day or something.
I'm serious.
Great, but I'm getting cold. Can we look back inside right now? You don't sound that freaked out anymore, Dave.
About that. One last thing. Yeah, everyone's dead.
What's that? I stood and offered my hand out to him so he could climb up my arm. Instead, he shook his head and lightly pushed my hand away.
Try not to remember how much this is going to hurt.
What? Things for a split second went painfully quiet. I didn't understand what he was talking about, but for the first time since meeting him, Thanatos wore a tired and sad smile.
Thanatos just self-destructed, just exploding little rat.
I think the house exploded.
I mean, I think so too, but I think Thanatos.
I think we 100% called that he explodes the house and kills all of his friends.
Stupid. Just don't. This is dumb.
Why?
You don't understand. It has to be this way because that's how the plot is written.
Does all of their deaths somehow fix the curse for Dave? Like the The fucking blood god from...
The blood god sated. Yeah, blood for the blood god, I guess.
Yeah, the blood god from fucking the Cabin in the Woods is like finally satisfied and stops hunting him or something. Like
The evil has been defeated. We killed Roswell.
I can't even complain that much. This is kind of what I wanted this game to be ever since the Orlando ending, is I just wanted it to be unhinged.
Whatever.
I laugh, but it is very entertaining when when something like this happens. I was thrown forward from the force of the blast that came out from nowhere. I fumbled into the rock Thanatos was standing on and watched as he limply fell forward, motionless.
Oh yeah, he died. So yeah, okay. That's what I got confused because I thought he exploded from that line, but I see what's happening now. His signal cut out.
I heard the context is also I heard a massive explosion in the audio that you don't hear.
Oh, that is true. I do have the game muted.
So I heard a big old explosion, which is why I viscerally and immediately laughed at this. Because I was like, is the house gonna explode? Like, literally, I did actually hear the noise. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yep.
That's why we're this far from the house, at the extent of his range, and why Thanatos is giving a dying speech. That's exactly what this is. And this is why in the weird good place ending potentially might be why there's a big fire where all of his friends are dead, and Thanatos and why Dave physically has Thanatos in his pocket when he would have gone down in the flames otherwise. So this lines up except for all the people that shouldn't be alive, so I don't know what that means still. I fumbled into the rock Thanatos was standing on and watched as he limply fell forward, motionless. From where I was prone, I looked back up at the house and couldn't believe what I was seeing. A second blast, followed quickly by another, happened all in the span of a couple seconds, and I watched as the house disappeared before my eyes in a blaze of smoke and rubble. Thanatos? I reached out for him, eyes glued to the site of the house where every last one of my remaining friends had been sleeping. Thanatos, did you know that? He was limp in my hands, and I knew that he wasn't going to answer. I wasn't cold anymore. I wasn't tired anymore. Mostly I was just in shock. Morning had broken by the time I'd made it to the road. Who knows how long I'd spent there, sitting in the middle of the driveway. Cold had set back in, tiredness had set back in, and I stared down into the hole left by the road. Looking back up, at the smoke still rising from what was left of the house, I could hear the faint sirens approaching from somewhere far off. Someone was coming. Someone was finally coming. I was taken away from that mountain in the back of an ambulance, along with a police escort. After they were sure I was physically fine, the police wanted answers. How did they get across the hole? Must have taken a while. And I gave the,
like Silent Hill. There was a hole there.
It just disappears immediately.
Yeah.
It is like the ending of the Silent Hill movie where they just drive into the hole. They drive at the hole and it just mysteriously is a road as they're leaving, but it's because of what that ending is. He actually is still in the mansion. He can never leave. And I gave them to them willingly. I told them about how the road blew up. I told them about what happened with Dominic and Benson. I told them about who was in the woods, and it was only then that the tone shifted. I knew before they said anything that they weren't keen on helping. I knew that even though the experiment had been a success and that I'd survived, I'd lost. No bodies to recover. The house was just a smoldering crater. No one to blame, as there was no evidence to pin it on in any one person. For a brief moment they considered me, but I had nothing to offer them, shy of what remained of Thanatos in my pocket. Hey. Thanatos? I had him tucked into my hoodie pocket, just as still as when I took him from the mountain. If you're watching right now, was it worth it? Was it worth killing every single one of my friends? Before us was
he kind of said yes.
Basically,
he literally kind of prefaced everything by saying
yes. It's from his perspective, it's literally all he ever cared about.
Yeah.
Before us was Dad's grave. The rest of my friends, without a marker to their name, all things considered. Services were held, at least for Haas and Dean, but nothing for Orlando or Sal. Damn! I had one for Tyson alone, but no one left to attend. And Roswell's? Roswell's was a strange one. Oh, it's the... Alright.
It's Florencia.
Yeah, they keep not naming her. Oh.
You did her voice last time.
I didn't expect to see you here. Hi, Sprite. Suddenly. Oh, it's you. Florencia, dear. Right, Oswin's sister. Are you all right? I gave her a sideward glance. Something felt off about her ever since she approached me at Roswell's memorial. No. Do you want something? I was just checking in. After all, I have my own people to visit here. But I suppose a graveyard is hardly a place to strike up friendly conversation, is it?
She's got the same facial expressions as Roswell, so it's probably his mom.
It seems likely. It seems like she's here because this is Roswell's grave, and we just guessed early on that that's what their relationship is. Florencia, I want to know something. Yes, dear? Why were you at Roswell's memorial? None of the others, despite everyone else dying on that mountain. Just Roswell's. Well, you know how Oswin was. I feel it's only appropriate to attend when he couldn't. I don't understand. Okay, so she's his aunt.
Yeah.
Because it's Oz's daughter, Oz's son. Oh, I'm sure you would have seen it. No doubt during your little trip, you'd have seen my brother pay Roswell some level of attention, no? No, he's dead.
Literally no.
He died
Literally
immediately,
no.
and it was barely a character, except in Legacy. Oswin...
If
yes.
Roswell is Oz's son, it is very weird for Roswell to be like, my parents set this up, this place that I've never seen before and I'm not related to. Oops, I mean my dad's house. It's just like, that's so dumb. I actually really hate that. I think that's bad. I don't care. It doesn't have an effect on the actual, like, you can do that in a story. That's okay. I just personally, Toaster, think that is stupid.
Yeah. I guess, did they pull a trick where Roswell never actually physically sees Oz's body? Was that the real reason why they gaslight Dave narratively, is just to stop Roswell from realizing it's his dad?
Yeah.
But except he grew up there? I only got to meet Oswin once. Then he was... Oh. Yeah, it ruined Benson. That, along with Thanatos messing with him, is probably why... Ah. I see. It's probably why what? Messing with Benson? Benson died because you abandoned him to die to Jack. But what makes you say Oswin would have given Roswell attention? It's no secret. My brother always wanted a son of his own. Having Roswell along for the trip was no doubt putting him at risk of being, well, I suppose surrogate son is about as apt as we're going to get. For the first week he just hid away from us, though. Chances are he was just nervous. Or, I don't mean to be grim, Dave, but everyone did end up dying. Perhaps he just caught wind of that long before everyone else did. If he didn't, then I'm sure Thanatos would have said something. I don't think... That's not what I thought the sentence was going about, you being nervous. I think he's nervous about meeting Roswell, or something. Yeah, well... I pulled him from my pocket, still limp, and showed him to Florencia. He's dead too, or whatever robots have as an equivalent. How did you... He took me out of the house just before the bombs went off. Didn't say anything about having anyone else, about saving anyone else, or anything. How strange. Because that he didn't bother trying to save anyone else. Kind of makes the entire narrative pointless, right? Like, you just recreated the first stupid ending where you leave without anyone, and then the house is gone, and all your friends are gone. Almost like they exploded. Why did we do... What was the last 40 hours for? All I remember is... He said something about an experiment, and how I was the one needing to be saved once it succeeded. That if I died, everyone else would end up dying. Well, I didn't. Great. He always said the strangest things.
He always said the strangest things.
Kids say the darndest things, 03 edition. I remember being there when he first woke up. It was a frantic panic trying to explain who he was, and that we had to listen. You were there when it happened? Not in the room, but just the next one over. Kept talking about a fire, and that he'd seen other iterations of the universe, and it was just so much to take in. A frantic panic, almost like Thanatos had emotions. You believed him then, from the moment he woke up? Well, your options are to write him off as crazy or to give him some credit. He was made to recall the histories of other cosmic cycles, so either someone had programmed in false records as a prank, or he was telling the truth. And you just, just let him? Let him what? Make decisions and, I don't know.
Dave, once again baffled by the idea that people would ever make choices.
Laurencia stepped forward and placed a hand carefully on my shoulder, if only briefly. When someone says that those people you love are going to die, you listen, don't you? I'm assuming you must have at some point. I trembled, thinking back to what happened to Tyson, what happened to Orlando. If only I knew that I had to be worried about a werewolf, things would have been so much simpler. Still, that's just life, isn't it? And death too, I suppose. Doesn't make it easier. It helps me cope with the loss of the people I tried to save. Shy of my husband, I have no more family left now. She flashed her wedding ring whimsically, as if we hadn't just been talking about death moments before. I think you should take Thanatos. He belongs to you anyway.
Wait, was he just holding Thanatos' dead rat in his pocket the whole time?
Yeah, he's been holding it this whole time.
Rat.
He held it out to her.
Have my pocket rat.
Yeah.
In my head, I thought he was just like talking to the great. Like, I just didn't connect to me that he's been literally holding a dead rat, because that's just fucking unhinged.
Yeah, no, he held it out to her like 10 lines ago, just like he did with
that
Oz
completely
before.
passed me by, because that's actually fucking insane.
It's quite the moment. Are you sure? I can't say he belonged to me, really, but he may as well have. Just tell me, do you know who his master is, or was even? Now, that's a tough question. Because you don't want to tell me? More because the answer isn't satisfying.
Wow, you could almost say that about the whole game so far.
That's an upsetting line to put in the game when it's a core mystery, yeah. Because the person that I believe to be his master hasn't existed for a long, long time, in a manner of speaking. She took Thanatos carefully from me and looked him over. This reminds me of a story. No thanks. Dave! Oh, live a little, Dave. We owe it to those gone to do just that. What's it about? It's an old fable called The Two Rats. Okay. What's the story? There were two rats. One old and one young. The older rat, upon finding a baited trap, goes to the younger rat and explains that there is a tasty morsel to have. But there's a trap. Obviously, he wouldn't fall for that, right? Alas, with youth brings inexperience. Youth brings mistakes. And in this case, the young rat dies to the trap, baited by the other rat, who knew better just for his own gain, as now the piece of cheese was free to take with no danger. So, what, don't listen to old people? You could say that, but it's different. Don't follow advice blindly, Dave. Much like when Thanatos woke up. I listened to him, but didn't blindly listen to him, like someone else might have. This is a weird piece of advice to receive when listening to Thanatos blindly and putting in the werewolf password is how you avoid this outcome. And we got it by specifically ignoring his advice.
Yep.
But you knew what he was planning. I had some inkling, but unlike you, I was not on that mountain. Any chance I had to alter things left the moment I departed, long before any of you arrived. Oh. But I imagine you'd shown up a bit sooner, huh? Or if you'd shown up sooner. She handed Thanatos back to me, flashing a smile. Maybe I would have been on the mountain. maybe everything that happened would have been very different. I shook my head with a sigh, stuffing Thanatos back into my pocket. I guess it doesn't matter now, but what was the password to open the vault anyway? You have to know it, right? Why did you want to know? Planning on trying to remember it for the next go-around? It's not like it's useful to anyone anymore.
Dave, do you not understand the fucking concept here? That has been explained to you 45 times. It is explicitly useful to you.
He definitely doesn't, but I think they just tried to explain that Florencia being there because we arrived on a different day is how you get the ending where everyone's dead, but all of the characters we know. No, that still doesn't make sense because David is alive. Dad's alive. I still don't know what that vision was then.
Yep.
Not useful to anyone currently. Still, I do know the password, though telling you isn't going to be any good, even if you do remember. Because when I hid those medals and entrusted the rest to Benson to hide, I also told Thanatos to keep watch, remember, when each of them were found. Additionally, to not open unless the password is given and every last medal has been uncovered.
Why? Why does this matter? Also,
it's brute. It's like we said before when we talked about this last time we talked about this game. It's that the medal system is an extremely artificial, separate system to brute force there being a nonary game where you have to go through all the timelines in order to get every outcome to get the true ending. But it's like someone just was like, well, we don't have a. The original example was a rat maze full of death, and which they kind of referenced just now, actually. And then the actual game itself was this huge decision game with all these, or Nonor game, or the other one, full of all these like brain engaging escape rooms that then lead to death outcomes.
Yeah.
But
I am deeply.
But we don't have a maze. We just have a mansion that you have full access to immediately. So, so it becomes like this game of telephone version of Zero Escape that's only comprehensible because you know Zero Escape.
Yeah. No, I understood all that immediately. I guess my thing was more like, so this is the game just telling us, like, even though we already put it together, like, just fully really saying, like, oh yeah, literally everything they ever said about the medals to get us to do the medals was just a big fat lie. And it's not like a clever lie. It's just they lied to us.
The characters are
they
just
lied
lying,
to us. Yeah. It's not like a clever trick. It literally is just, you need to find the medals because like they were lost and we don't know where they are. Go find them. Tee. It's like, all right. Okay.
Yeah, it's just it's basically a waste of time. One, it's just cool. It's extremely confusing that it's basically introduced as if it's a Roswell activity when like it's Roswell. Like everyone immediately gives zero fucks about the medals the moment you finish the maze in a way that like isn't even narratively justified. Like they literally just immediately a switch flips after finding one medal and they never think about them again, and they just happen to find some of them on accident and go, huh, a medal.
Yeah,
anyway,
there's no one saying like, hey guys, let's go find the medals. That's so much work. I don't want to do that. It literally is just they forgot about it.
They just forget about them immediately, and then Benson awkwardly just brings them up again like 2 weeks later, and then they forget about them immediately again. Like everyone, even though they took it to the time to specifically motivate Tyson to care about the medals by offering a cash reward, he also never says anything about the medals or successfully finds one as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
So it's once again just going nowhere. Like what desperately needs to happen is like Oz or Benson or Thanatos or someone just needs to grab Dave by the shoulders and be like, find the medals, Dave, in a weird well, what needs to happen is the medals need to not be part of the narrative because it doesn't work on any level. But if you're doing
that's what I was gonna say.
But what I'm saying is that if you're going to do the medals, you need to do the thing that happens in Pathologic where the fucking tragedian talks directly to the player through the just through the bachelor, and he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's like, haha, reputation's very important, player, like through the bachelor.
I don't even think you need to do that.
What I mean is honestly, that there's no reason to introduce the medals to the cast. Like that's incomprehensible.
I think the big issue is actually just we as players don't have the ability, like this is what I've been saying. I think I've said it before a few times, but the medals being part of the end game only makes sense if we get to choose to look for the medals. You
Yeah.
don't even like. You can write
It's
a
not an adventure
1,000
game.
reasons. Yeah, you can write 1,000 reasons why the characters would want to or would not want to search for the medals. But the thing is that we are not making decisions based around the medals. Even with this information, I cannot go back to the start of this game and say like, okay, we need the Sagittarius medal. We're going to find the Sagittarius medal by going to the garden. How do I get to the garden? Because all of our choices are just talk to Sal in the kitchen. Go to the foyer.
Because you're
Talk
considering
to
it, because you're
Orlando.
considering it as like a not a- like almost like a Metroidvania adventure game, and that like you need to like find the specific causality timeline that makes it possible to get past this door to get this medal
Yes.
and so on, which would work on some level for a different genre. And yeah, in this case, what really desperately needs to happen is that the medals need to just not exist in the narrative whatsoever, because I doubt it's ever going to be justified by the end. And
Yeah.
in universe, it's not even justified because like you could just find all the medals in the same timeline. They're not like in,
Yeah.
as far as we can tell, none of them are like in magic places you can only access if very extremely specific things happen. It's just that narratively they just decided, oh, there's a scene where this guy finds a medal in this timeline at random over
Yep,
here,
exactly.
and it's just arbitrary. But if they were like turning the house over all month, they would just find the medals
Yep.
probably.
Yes. Well,
What
that's
you
the
need to do
issue,
is
though,
just
I guess, is
delete
from
the
a
medals narratively, never mention them ever again. Don't ever bring them up. They don't fit. Instead, what happens is you just have her at this ending drop like this. She could just drop a hint that like the only way for this all to make sense is to finally see everything.
Yeah,
Like the
she
idea-
literally could just say like,
Because that's what they want. They're just trying to tell us, hey,
Yeah.
play every timeline. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay. You can narratively
Yeah.
justify that in a cryptic, talked directly to the player sort of way moment.
Sure.
Without making up several scenes about medals that just like then just
I guess
make us
guess my
mad
point,
the whole
though-
game about medals.
Yeah. Well, my point with that though is that like the game is trying to justify its use of narrative choices, and like it's trying to give us agency as players to influence the narrative and make a big difference. And like, yes, what you're saying is true. You can just remove the medals and say like, well, guess we're gonna need to see every single possible outcome before we can figure out the right one. Because that's what this line of that literally what I
Yeah.
just said could be a line of dialogue that fixes this whole problem. But because the game is trying to shoehorn this into a nonary game, the medals are fine. That works. You can just do that. But you absolutely need to make it so that the choices that are presented to the player reflect the information that they are given. And right now, those don't align. The medals are a completely secondary thing that comes after the result of completely unrelated choices we make, making it impossible for us to path to them.
Yeah,
So
you
it
get,
makes
you get
the
the
fact
true
that
ending
we
by getting all the medals, even though you have zero actual option to pursue getting the medals.
Yes,
You
exactly.
just
There's no A to
arbitrarily-
B
you just arbitrarily
causality for the
experience the
medals.
entire narrative, and you happen to get the medals in the process unrelatedly.
That's
And
garbage.
I also have my own problem with this entire concept, and it's the same problem I had with Zero Escape itself, and it's kind of just a problem with the genre, is that it's framed almost like it's player agency, but it's actually the opposite of player agency, because if you literally have to brute force every single combination in order to finish the game, then there's no such thing as choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it became a thing, like, every now and then somebody would be like, if you betray this character, you're a monster, when people talk about VLR and stuff like that. I'm like, no, VLR doesn't have choices.
No, yeah, it's
You
not
have
about
to,
that.
you
Yeah.
you literally, like, they're not moral choices, they're not choices on any level, except for the physical act
Yeah.
of choosing. You literally have to brute force every single outcome in all of VLR, which makes me unengaged
Yeah.
with the idea of ever making any choice intelligently, because I'm just immediately becomes a checklist.
I mean,
It's
I
the
kind
only
of
way to
think
beat the
that's
game.
kind of what the game's trying to do, is like, that's what I find clever about the game, is that it's like, they're trying to make you into that sociopathic Akane. But like the thing that I think doesn't work is when games do this and they're like, they want you to feel like you have agency and that each ending is a nuanced, valuable path that a player can get to and holds meaning individually. But then that gets shorthanded by the fact that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts in these narratives. And it's like, well, literally the only reason why these other timelines exist is so that we can achieve the true ending. You did it, which is like, I think that's one of the problems with this game, is that it's like, why should it's as I said before, why the fuck should I care if Roswell's gonna die? I don't like him, I don't care. And in the end, if we get the true ending, it's still gonna require us to go through all the other endings. So
Yeah.
I'm just disengaged. Like, I
It just
don't
makes
give a
me
shit.
wish
It's
that
whatever.
they would just narratively justify that.
Yeah.
Instead of being like,
Yeah.
get all the medals, Dave. We're tricking you into getting the true ending, you dumb bastard.
Yeah,
It's like-
I agree.
It's like,
yeah, completely.
what if just for a brief moment, even though it's just in these endings because he can't take the knowledge back with him, Dave actually for a moment knew how to get the true ending, actually had a motivation of why you would want to live through every single possible timeline, like it's Andy Weir's The Egg, instead of just being like, it's a fun little collectible. Get the collectible, Dave. Why?
Yeah.
And preemptively, even though I kind of doubt this is the case, even if there is like a magic statue that you get to put all the medals in, that doesn't narratively justify the medals. That just that still doesn't make it work. It's just like, wow, they made a puzzle slot to slap them into. Okay.
Yeah. It's more just from
a
like
real rough narrative element. One of the worst. It's one of the roughest narrative elements of the entire game, except only mollified by how inconsequential it is, in that you can kind of just try to ignore it and just be like, just play the timelines, just pretend it's your escape.
Yeah. Yeah. No, completely. I think the problem here is with the presentation. It's just like, and what you're saying is true. Like, you don't need the medals. The medals are just complicating this narrative. Yeah. My point is more like,
we've hit the point where we have ended the timeline. And all of Dave's friends are dead. His entire family is dead. Everyone he's known is dead. He's traumatized repeatedly, and he's actually saying this stuff out loud like it matters. We were never gonna win the game, were we? The scavenger hunt was just like, he never cared about the scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Why were we pretending he cared? It doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't work on any level.
For me, from a player perspective, I think the biggest issue is just that, once again, the game gets to this ending, and we're supposed to view this as a revelation, right? And people will say, like, the Sal route's not the one you're supposed to do first. This path B, you should have done path A first. But, like, this scene hits like a revelation, like we're supposed to be able to use this information and for it to be actionable. What has she just told us? Go find the medals, do everything. That's not actually actionable information. Like, it's not, there is no difference that this is going to make from what us not knowing anything would have made.
It's somewhat actionable only in the way that, like, it's like the pop-up in Nier Automata that's like, oh, by the way, if you haven't played the first Nier, the whole point is you're supposed to replay it after you get an ending. Don't stop here. Oh God, don't stop here.
Yeah.
That's not the point of this game. So on that level, I can say it's actionable.
But the thing is
it's like a way of catching players and be like, by the way, you're supposed to keep going.
Yeah, sure, but I feel like that's already something that's like something everyone would have done. You get to this ending, it's a visual novel. You know your audience. I mean, sure, you design around the idea that anyone can play, but like, who the fuck is gonna get to this ending and then be like, all right, I'm just never gonna play again. It's over.
I don't know.
I'm in this choice-based game. I am not gonna make different choices. It's like, what this is telling us is you have to play the other endings. Thanks. I fucking knew that. It's not going to change my behavior. I was already going to go back and play the other endings. So it's like not actually new information, and it doesn't give us anything new to change our decision making other than the fact that the decisions that brought us here gave us a bad ending.
I will defend
Maybe she
that.
said something
I will
new.
say that you do probably need to indicate that people should replay the game, because I genuinely don't think you can just assume everyone will be on board for that and understand that part of it. I just think the scavenger hunt is just an incredibly poorly thought out approach to that.
Sure. I just think that even if this wasn't pointing us back to the scavenger hunt, the obvious conclusion is we made the wrong choice. Go back to the point where we made the choice and make the opposite choice. Like, that's just
but it's more
how these games work.
That's significantly more obvious, and why you don't necessarily have to explain it when everyone like gets axe murdered and the game stops early, which technically is happening here, but it's very much like this is so telegraphed as being like, no, the narrative's over kind of ending, that you do probably have to kind of like, okay guys, I can't just assume everyone's on the same page here. By the way, you keep playing the game.
I guess. I don't know. I just don't buy it.
This to the point where it feels like a thing that you literally would add from player testing, because them behaving that way, kind of like how they.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you on some level in that, like, I'm like, oh man, it kind of like. In Nier Automata's case, it kind of felt stupid that there was a disclaimer saying to keep playing, but because that's the point of the series. But I also guarantee, and also I think I just know factually, that they play tested it and people didn't keep playing, and that was the problem, is that they were missing the point of the game and the rest of it because they didn't get that the game was doing a cheeky little trick with the fake ending where you then replay it and change it.
Yeah.
So I think
it's just
that's like the difference between like. like niche Xbox 360 RPG and Xbox One Square Enix high profile instant classic game that everyone loves and plays so much. It's like
Sure.
that extra bit of play testing and being like, okay, we need to catch everyone on board here. We need to.
I guess
we need to
my
make sure
my
they do this.
explanation or my thing here is just that like the context of something that's like you got ending 1. The fact that it's numbered implies there is more than one ending. So if you make the choice to cater to an audience that is not aware of what that means, then accept that you're making a choice that is lowering your bar and your standard of critical thinking, right? And that's also just kind of embarrassing. If people really needed help to know this far in, past multiple chapters, multiple days, multiple endings, multiple choices, that actually you need to go back and make different choices, I'm sorry to say they're a lost cause and you can actually leave them behind when you're just trying to make a better piece of work. I'm sorry. You can't make everyone happy. You can't make art for everyone because you'll just make art for no one. So make a better story. That's all I'm saying. So it's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Sure. But there's in between. There's degrees. Like speaking as somebody who constantly rewrites all their scripts trying to communicate as clearly as possible to as many people as possible, and I specifically, like in video essay terms, I specifically refuse as best as I can to use like educated language, I guess is how you'd put it, like terms that need to be defined too much and so on, and like assuming people know a ton about filmmaking and stuff in a way that's like actively unhelpful sometimes, because sometimes people will just like drop a bunch of philosophers on you and you're like, what the fuck is this video about, Haley?
Sure.
What the fuck did you just say to me?
Yeah.
And like,
I don't know. I'm the opposite on that because I feel like being as specific
what I'm trying to
as
say is that
possible
all you
important.
have to is that if you can get people on board by just adding a couple of lines that fit the character and the narrative, then it doesn't hurt.
Sure.
If you think,
but it's different
if your
to
solution is
wrap
to
around.
add the stupid scavenger hunt thing and jangle keys in front of them, then that's not great.
Yeah, sure. I just think in this case it's just like overwriting. It's just all overwritten. It's so bad.
I think there's an elegant way to have just a couple lines of dialogue that talk directly to the player through a bit and just kind of like actually successfully convey the idea without all of the scuff. And that doesn't bring the narrative down or anything. I think you can just do that. I don't think it's not that much of a problem to just try to catch people that you might miss. It's just you have to be careful with how to convey it. And I think that's elegant writing. I don't think it's the same thing as just like pandering to idiots necessarily. It's just you can.
Yeah, I just feel like in this case it is pandering to idiots. That's what it feels like to me.
Anyway, so we were never going to win that game, were we? That scavenger hunt was just a distraction? Unfair? I can say for a fact that why I did what I did was completely unrelated to you or any of your friends, but it has its uses. Such as, well, I have my own experiment to run, perhaps with a Dave and another iteration of the universe we've yet to get to, perhaps with someone else, but it's not for us to know. So what happens now? You're expecting something to happen. There has to be something, right? This can't just... I mean... I shook my head, looking down at my dad's grave again. No. I guess... there's nothing left, is there? If it makes you feel better, I could tell you the password to open the vault. Though, as I said, even with the password, Thanatos wouldn't have opened it unless you've collected all the medals across his lifetime. I said that 2 lines ago, but we're repeating it. Don't worry about it. I turned away from her then, deciding not to look back. There wasn't anything left for me on that mountain. Or from that family. I had my life, but ultimately I questioned what good it was when everyone else in my life had died shy of my own mother. As time went on, I found it hard to keep any meaningful relationships. Every interaction I had came with the feeling that if they lingered near me, they'd end up dead. Maybe it was Thanatos influencing things, even after he was long gone, his last few words to me still lingering in the back of my mind. If I died, my friends all would have anyway. The less friends I have, the less people at risk, so I grew to think. My life stagnated from there on out. I wondered if, in the end, it would have been no different to me dying on the mountain after all. We got an end instead of a bad end, which is what interpretation? It's interesting to not frame it as a bad end. What does resonate mean in this context?
I don't know. They're doing that weird thing where you go back now, but it's like inconsistent. So guess we're going back to the vault so we know exactly what choice was bad, except for all the other times when we have a bad end where we don't do this.
Yeah, I guess this is the
werewolf.
The werewolf password. Yep. So that's the werewolf.
Yep.
So we're back to the original timeline before I took us on a bit of a tangent, but you know, that was definitely something we were meant to experience, so I'm glad we got to it. It's interesting that resonate comes up in part because I guess
so this is another
the language
example,
of the game.
though.
The language of the game is that you should then be able to answer what the password was based on the fact that you're resonating and using that knowledge. But
we get the password before this, so it's not
so
helpful.
if you were wrong the first time, you're gonna still be wrong here and still not know what it is because you actually need to rewind further back in time to find the password because of the fact that it wasn't conveyed. So at that point, it kind of does feel like they should just force you down this path, and the password should be in the. She should actually give you a password, the one that lets you the one that lets you survive this, or it comes to you, or like that ending monologue by Dave about how his life completely stagnates and dead ends, and why he's miserable with his friends all dead. Like that could generate a password there, and that would make sense for this resonate. But if you actually do resonate to this point and genuinely didn't have the password to figure out, and that's why you went down that route, then you're still like, what the fuck was I supposed to do? Because the game until now conveyed that you learned the passwords from the bad ending, and nothing in there was helpful to conveying what the password was. So why didn't they? And it's like, yeah, like how do you work the word werewolf into the narrative to like make that clear that that's the password that gets you back on route? So I don't even know how you fix that entirely, but it does break the rules at this point if you didn't pick up on the Thanatos thing. So it is somewhat confusingly written exclusively for people to play this game by definitely figuring out the password with Thanatos, then intentionally not using it is how you get that entire route. That's based on you not being able to get the password, but the only way it scans is if you're doing it on purpose to see what happens, which is, because I don't see how it works any other way. Odd.
Yep.
But that's a whole other can of worms. All right, see you guys next time when we're back on Path B.